Now you can probably see that this has a lot more washes on it than it did in previous videos of this. I went ahead and painted the initial washes for everything except her face and her arms, because this is what causes me the most, I don't want to say distress, but the most, yeah, it's the most stress because I'm not very good with faces, so I really have to take my time. I did this off camera rather than doing it to show you the technique, because you can pick the technique up the way you do it, but these are my initial washes. I worked on the umbrella, which you might see over here, and it's kind of dulled. I will probably knock this back with some gray washes. I don't want this red to be the focal point. I want it to be kind of sort of here. I lifted a lot of the background that I had by just taking this large 1-inch brush and dampening it, and then taking a paper towel and streaking the paper towel over the background because I felt it was too dark there. I laid in some brown over here and I didn't like it. It was too dark, so I used the same method where I lifted it and manipulated it with a damp 1-inch brush and then took a paper towel and lifted that. The problem was my nail. I don't have very long nails, but I ended up gouging a little bit of the paper, which may not matter because I think I'm going to crop it when I mat it. But I lifted that part where I gouged it because I can't fix it with something a Mr. Clean magic eraser or any generic magic eraser will lift. If you dampen and carefully run this on your watercolor paper and then take up the excess moisture with a paper towel, you can almost get it down to totally white. I'm going to do a little bit with this, but I'm not going to focus on it very much. The rest of this, I just put initial color in on these bins. Again, they're not going to be my focal point. They're kind of a supplement. I might just add some detail here and there with dry brushing. I'm not sure I want to put a lot of focus on this. I added the red on this bag, which you can probably not see, but there's a cellophane bag of fertilizer or something there. Kind of did a little bit more of an outline here of this bucket, and the big thing was to get her dress in. And this is a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. You can see more ultramarine blue than burnt sienna here and there. It's kind of grayed down. I didn't want to make it a solid color like this. Nothing is solid. If you look at a piece of cloth, even if it's dark, there's light reflecting over it. There's different variations of color. I wanted to bring that into this gown, and this is just an initial wash. I like it. I left some white sparkles here and there. I call them sparkles, but it's just leaving the white of the paper. I don't like what happened here, but I can always cover that up with additional washes. Now, what is the next step? What would you do? Something to think about. Instead of just blindly painting, think about where your light is coming from, which is what I have to consider. I have more light here than here, so I'm going to probably play up more washes and add more pleating here and there, add some lines here and there, work on this bucket. There's a dark shadow here. It's probably where there's dirt and stuff. I'm going to work on that. I want to knock this back a little bit more with more grays and start putting in more color here and there. I'm not sure what to do about this. I lift it there. What would you do? Darken it more? I'm afraid to do that because I want to see how the interplay is with the background and when I do her face. So I'm going to do these things off camera and then explain to you what I did, because I really have to focus on this because it's a fairly complex piece. But that gives you an idea of what I did with the initial washes of color. I started adding color, a few more washes to certain places on this. I'm moving along with this rather slowly. I usually work very quickly, unless it's this complex where I have to force myself to slow down. What's tricky for me are these bins here on the side, and I tend to overwork them. Every time I've done this, I've overworked it. So I just made a suggestion of what the bin would look like, because really it's supporting my main character, which is this lady here. And the bins, I think what I'm going to do, as you can see here on the original, I'm going to crop the painting just like I have my original photograph that I'm working from. I also added some color, just very initial washes. You can see maybe you can see light sketching underneath for her facial features. I have to go very light on that, keeping her hair white and adding a few elements of gray and maybe a little bit of light brown on there, adding some dimension to that umbrella, and a lot of that is going to be cropped. Let's see, what else did we do? Here and there, adding more pleats, more dimension, more folds to that dress that she's wearing. A few more brush strokes of red there. I'm not sure what I'm doing with that. And then I had this pole, this architectural detail, and a lot of that's going to be cropped. I think what I'm going to do is focus mainly on the figure when I mat this, and that's part of the beauty of watercolor, is that I can cut the paper or mat it the way I want to, versus with a canvas you're kind of stuck unless you're stretching the canvas and cutting it. With watercolor I can always cut certain pieces off. So that's where I am with this at this step of the painting. I'm going to analyze it and kind of decide what I'm going to do with it. I kind of have a feeling it's getting close to the end because I don't want to overwork it. The biggest challenge for me is not the bucket. That's going to be a last minute thing. I think I'm leaving these crates alone. Biggest challenge for me is right here, which is where my focal point is. So I think I better concentrate on that next, and we'll see how that goes. I may have talked at some point about using working mats. I call working mats old mats that I have from, oh gosh, years ago that might be torn. And what I do with these is I kind of configure them as I'm painting to see how I might want to crop this painting, or any painting for that matter. And you can see it's kind of cobbled together. I've got two mats taped like this, one on top of each other. Nothing fancy, believe me, but it gives me an idea of when I mat this, what I want to crop out and what I want to concentrate on right now in the painting. So it's not designed to be pretty, it's designed to help me focus. And you can see I cropped a lot of that umbrella off, a lot of the containers, those bins off, just kind of focusing here on the main subject. And I'll paint out the rest of it, but I know that I have to really keep a focus right here so I can accomplish telling my story. I've gotten a lot of work done on this, just little details here and there. I did something that one of my teachers would call graying out. She would say, your color looks a little too bright, a little too chroma on that. Why don't you gray it out a little bit? And what she meant by that is a mixture of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue to create a nice light gray. And I would use it, as I did here, to knock back some of the bright colors that I have when I lay in color, because I felt those bright colors were competing with the rest of the painting. Let's see, what else have we worked on? Oh, back here, I put in some darker shadows using that gray mixture for the greenery, because I felt, again, the interest was competing with the rest of the painting. Also, on this, I took a paper towel and a brush, a scrubby brush, and I actually moved around and manipulated some of this watercolor paint and lifted it with a paper towel to give it some texture, because it looked a little flat back there. I added some more shadows on the ground here, just a little bit of shadow under her dress and under that bucket, and maybe stronger shadows here under that bag of whatever it is, that red bag. Let's see what else. Yes, the greenery. I did a little bit more on the lettuce, threw a little shadow here and there. Also threw a little bit more shadow on the umbrella. But most important of all, I started working on her face. And I'm a little nervous about that. As you can see, if I pan over very slowly here, I don't have a whole lot of detail on the resolution on the blow up of the photograph I took. So I'm kind of just tippy-toeing through here, probably going to use a very small, like a number 2 or a number 1 brush, and just put shadows in. I'm not displeased with the basic outline of her features, but I'm not thrilled. Got more results than I wanted, which is good results on her arms, and the light and the shadow there. I'll probably build up more on the shadow underneath her arms. The mixture I use for my skin tone is the same thing I typically use, which is burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson, and I can get pretty much anything I need in various values for any skin tone that I do. Sometimes when I can't see a photograph, I have a book of black and white photographs of various poses by models. Facial features, body parts, because if you don't have a live model, you can't see what you're doing. It's good to see a photograph. I liked this gentleman's eyes, but they really don't match with the angle that she's at. So I'm kind of on my own here, but it'll all work out. Next step, I think we're just going to keep working on that face and working very slowly with a small brush. It's always a bit of an odd feeling when I finish a painting. It's sort of like when you look for a conventional job and you go to your job interview and you know, they thank you and you're done and you feel you did your best, but you're just not sure if your best was good enough. So in a sense, when I paint, I guess I feel every painting is like a job interview. I did my best. I have the chops. I have the skill set. What didn't I like about this? Why didn't I think it went well? Of course it went well. I'm going to look at this 2 months from now and go, oh, I did a good job. What I don't like about it, let's start with that. I don't like these boxes, these crates, bins, whatever you call them. I didn't do a great job drawing them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be sneaky. I'm going to pop in how I plan to crop this so that I get rid of the issue that I did with the side of those crates. And a reminder to myself, I need to be more careful. Also, not too thrilled with the bucket. It doesn't look oval enough for me back here. It all depends on how you feel about buckets. It's an old bucket, it's beat up. Why am I worried about that? I shouldn't be, because my focal point is right here. Is her looking at this lettuce, deciding if these leaves are good enough to keep or dump before she puts them out on the farmer's market floor. A little difficult doing the face because I only had about an inch to work with. It doesn't give me much room for play. I felt her eyes were too dark, but I didn't have anywhere to go with it. So the lesson to me there is don't work in small spaces. This particular scene has been nagging me for 20 years. I want to get her out of my life. I wanted to recap quickly what I did. Again, I did a blow up on my computer. I cropped it and then did a blow up and printed it close to the way that I wanted to crop the actual painting. I worked with many versions of this, one of 3. I kind of had this one as a reference because I felt even 20 years ago, excuse me, that's the lamp. 20 years ago, I did a fairly decent job of it when I didn't know what I was doing. For that level in my time period, I think I did all right. And then I also had the original photograph, which when I took the photograph and came home, on the back of the photo, I wrote what it was. So of course that came across through the photo, sunk in because I used some sort of a magic marker. So that obliterated the face even more. Considering all that, I think she came out okay. Somebody else who is more schooled at this might say, you could have done this and this better. I could have, but this is what I did. And I'm happy with it, I'm proud of it, and I know there's room for improvement. I hope working on this lady in the farmer's market and showing it to you has helped you with some of your challenges and things that you're not comfortable with while you're painting. Thank you so much for watching, for bearing with me on this one, and I hope you have a very successful and creative week. Take care.